Hi, Greg. Hi, Niv. Hello, hello. So, today I want to try something a little bit different. I want to try. So, I put it in the comments here. So, what I want to do is, we do these like storytelling exercises. Hey, Sue. Hi, Katerina. Hey, Raja. So, we do this storytelling exercises at Night Owl Nation where we. The question button, Rachel, is down here, right here. So what we do is we do these exercises. One of the exercises is like connecting the dot. Another one is maybe like you know, seeing things from another person's perspective, or coming up with a 5 second moment. So we come up with all these exercises, right? And a lot of people don't know how to connect that to their content. So what I want to do is I want to show you guys how it's related. So if there's like a piece of content, a carousel that you saw from me that you like, and you want to know how I came up with the idea, because like often people ask me, "Oh, son, how do you come up with this idea? How did you come up with that idea?" So if you want to know how I came up with those ideas for the carousel, just put in the question, click on that question button, and then tell me which post, and I'll tell you what. I'll tell you how. Okay, let's start. I have one. So, I mean, this is an easy one. Your single post about the need to impress others, right? That's an easy one because, like, I personally, that's not really like I never thought about it that way type of moment. But what happened was for me, I used to go into meetings trying to impress, right? So I go to impress, like, here's the thing. I'll do research on the client. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bring this up. I'm gonna talk about all the awards I won and all of these things. And I'm just like in my head trying to go in there to impress, right? And when I go in and I try to impress, it doesn't work. People are just kind of staring at me like, what? And what happened was I wasn't closing any sales. People were not hiring me, right? But then when I was hiring a copywriter for one of my clients, we were interviewing all these copywriters. And every copywriter that we were interviewing was doing the same thing. They were trying to impress me. They were like telling me about this client they work with. They were talking about their skills and all this knowledge they have, and they were so focused on impressing me that it felt like they weren't even listening to me. So it felt like it was. So what happens is that's when I realized, like, oh, I think I'm doing the same thing. So when I'm like so focused on impressing other people, what I'm actually doing is I'm not making it anything about them. I'm making it all about me. Oh, look how impressive I am. Hire me. I won this award. Oh, I work with this client. Impress, impress, impress. And when I'm doing that, all my attention and energy is on me, how I look in front of them. And none of my attention is on them. So what I had to do, so when I was like interviewing those copywriters, they were all doing the same thing. And it seemed like they didn't even care about our problems. It felt like they weren't even really trying to listen to me. They were just so focused on themselves, right? That's why I started going like, oh, that's probably how my clients feel when I'm trying to impress them, right? So I've stopped trying to impress, and I walked in. I would like meditate for 5 minutes, walk into a meeting, and what happens is when I'm not trying to impress, now I was curious. I went to a curious mode and I'm asking questions. I was like, "Oh, how did you start that business? Oh, so what happened there? Oh, why do you think this problem is happening?" And I'm asking all those questions. And at the end of the meeting, even though I didn't say anything about me. The client will always say, "Son, I talked to like 5 different agencies, and I feel like you're the only one who actually understands me." And I didn't say a thing. And it's because the whole energy has shifted. I was genuinely curious and I was asking them the right questions that I didn't have to say anything. And they felt like they knew me. So that's when I kind of started like understanding this concept of, okay, whenever you're trying to impress others, that's not impressive. What's really impressive is when you don't try to, when you're actually being interested in them, when you're showing interest. And it's kind of like what I realize is that, you know, we live in a world where everybody's so focused on talking about themselves that nobody's really listening. Everyone's talking and nobody's listening. So what ends up happening is every time you talk to somebody, like I feel like in today's modern society, we yearn for somebody to listen. I wish somebody would listen to me. I wish somebody would hear me. I wish somebody would understand how I feel. But nobody's listening. Everyone's focused on talking. Nobody's listening. So as soon as you meet somebody who's actually listening to you, who's really care about what you're saying, and they're curious about what you have to say, you feel like you're in the center of the world. Like you feel like a princess because, oh my gosh, this person's actually listening to me. So if you want to impress somebody, listen to them. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, this one is from Rachel. Love your post about passion versus doing work to get income. So important. You posted recently. What made you post this? Passion versus so same thing happened, right? Okay. I listened to Simon Sinek, and I'm like, like Steve Jobs, do what you love and never work a day in your life. Like, so I was in that camp, right? I was like, oh, just, just you got to follow your passion and blah, blah, blah. So when I started my agency, I was following my passion. I'm like, I'm going to work with all these tech startup companies, right? And I want to work with tech startups. I want to build apps for tech startups, and that's what I love. But then what happened was, in the beginning years of our agency, we were not making any money. I didn't realize this until later, but in the beginning years of my agency, I didn't realize that tech startups have no money. They're kind of spending their own money, right? They're bootstrapping. So every dollar they spend, they're gonna make sure they get the most out of every dollar. So we actually make less money, and we have to do more work when we work with tech startups. When I work with like corporate, like Fortune 500 company, like if I work with a tech startup and they pay us $20,000, that's out of their own pocket, that person is gonna make sure they get the most out of that $20,000. But when I work with American Red Cross, who's paying us $200,000, $200,000 to them is nothing. And the person who's making the decision is just a marketing director. It's not their money. So it's actually it's a completely different thing, right? So what happened was, in those beginning days, I was like, I don't want to work with, these boring projects. I'm going to work on the fun projects, tech startups, right? And we were losing money. And what happened was, we were like literally homeless. Me and my wife were sleeping in the office because we rented out our apartment on Airbnb so we can pay for our expenses. And we would go to the gym to take showers. That's how bad it was. And what happened was, because I was so desperate, I kept taking on these projects just to make sure we have a cash flow. And then because even though this client was a red flag client, I was like, oh, I don't know. But then I had to take it because I had no choice, because I was desperate. And then a couple months later, it turns out to be a problem client. We end up spending more time, so we lose money on the project. But because we lost our money, so now I'm making stupid decision again by taking on another red flag client because I need the money. And I just kept digging my own hole, going down, 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 right? And what happened was, at some point, I realized I was doing that. And so we had to dig ourselves out of that hole and just, focus only on making money. Like, we literally had to focus only on making money until we had 6 months to a year runway where we didn't have to worry about money. And then when I started walking into meetings and going into sales meetings, people actually started, like, even now that I wasn't desperate, now that I wasn't like desperate to get those projects, we actually got higher paying clients. We got, better clients, and we got easier clients. Hey guys, if you have any questions, just put it in the sticker tab. So that that's kind of where I came up with the thing, right? So I think there's also another post where I said, don't do what you love, right? Like, don't follow your passion. And I talk about how, you know, and I give an example. And here's the thing. This is why I say storytelling is so important, because once you've experienced it on your own and you go back and you reflect on it, what I realized is that, I love doing design, so I'm going to start a design agency, right? But then, like 3 years into it, I was miserable. I was miserable walking to. I was miserable going to work in my own agency. I love design. I wanted to be a designer. I started a design agency, and 3 years into it, I was miserable going to work in my own design agency. Why? Because what happened was 3 years into it, we hired designers, developers, and all of that. But somebody has to manage them. Somebody has to manage clients. And even if we have project managers, somebody has to manage the project managers. Somebody has to pay the bills. There's all these things as a business owner that you have to do. And when you're doing that, you don't really have time to do the projects. So I basically became a babysitter. You know what I mean? Hey guys, I can't keep up with the chats. So if you have questions, just put it in the. Yeah, I'm not really good at multitasking. So I can't talk and read the chat at the same time. So that's what happened. And what I realized is, like, oh my gosh, like, building a business is so different than doing what you love. Like, I started thinking, I wish I can go back to freelancing, or I wish I could go back to a job where I do the design only, and I don't have to worry about all these other business headaches. I don't have to worry about cash flow. I don't have to worry about employee quitting in the middle of the project. So how I'm going to handle that? I don't have to worry about my landlord, like, complaining because we were being so loud. Like, I wish I don't have to worry about motivating all my employees. I don't have to worry about somebody coming in late every day. I wish I didn't have to worry about all of these things, and I could just focus on the design. That's how I felt, right? And that's when I realized, okay, doing what you love is very, very different from building a business around what you love. So if you love baking, don't start a bakery, because running a bakery is very different than baking. Okay. So, and that's where I got that idea, right? So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, the reason why I always say you're not going to be able to come up with great content unless you've experienced it yourself. It's because when you experience yourself, you notice all those little nuances, and you notice those aha moments. Oh, this is not what everybody's saying up here is actually not necessarily true. Because what happens is, everyone loves to give advice. Everyone loves to hear advice, give advice. Oh, just do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right? Or, just follow your passion. Don't chase money, right? Money is like, money is the root of all evil, or all of these things, right? People they just heard, like, all these 25-year-old life coaches, all these 25-year-old business coaches. They heard it from Gary Vee, they heard it from Alex Hormozy, they heard it from Tony Robbins, and they heard all this shit, and they're just repeating it. Oh yeah, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in teaching something or talking about something that you yourself didn't experience. Like, what the fuck did you do? You didn't do anything. All you did was you just hear it and you're just repeating it, right? But then when you actually do it yourself, you understand all the little nuances. You start to understand, okay, that's not always true. Do what you love. Don't follow money. That's not always true. Sometimes you have to follow money. You know what I mean? So what happens is, once you learn all the nuances, now you can start coming up with content where you come up with the thing that everyone's saying: do what you love, don't follow money, blah 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 blah, right? Be present, right? Whatever it is, right? And then you understand the nuances on that, right? Like, what do all the leadership coaches say, right? Leadership coaches say, oh, be vulnerable. Like, you have to be vulnerable, or you have to, you have to be humble. You have to have humility. You have to admit that you're wrong. and you have to, or you have to encourage your employees or something like that. Okay, but what about I have a deadline in an hour and this employee just fucked up and I need it fixed within an hour and I don't have time to spend a week trying to work with that person and give them, like, what if I don't have that time to do that? Then what, right? There's nuances to all of this. So we need to understand the nuance. And once you understand nuance, this is what happens. You take that myth, the advice that everyone's giving, and what I do is I talk about the nuance and then I debunk that myth with the nuance. And once that happens, people are going to be like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And that's why it's so important that you experience things yourself rather than just repeating what other people are saying. You need to understand the nuances. What problem does a Ferrari solve? I think that's like something I heard long time ago in the marketing, but that's kind of what happened. Again, this is why you need experience before you can talk about some shit. Don't talk about shit that you don't have experience in. I've worked with over 100 clients, and almost every client, the first thing we have to do is we have to figure out, because in order for us to come up with a marketing message, a sales message, we need to figure out what the problem is, right? Because if the customer doesn't have a problem, they're not going to buy anything. And we realized this early I realized this early in my career. Like, here's a good example. Most people are not, think about it. It's because we're so bad at we're bad at delaying gratification, right? So if I tell you eat healthy, like if I tell you to quit smoking, if you're a smoker and I tell you to quit smoking, you're not going to quit until you get lung cancer, and then you have to quit, then you're going to quit, right? So we don't want to do we're not really good at seeing like hope and something that's good for us, but we want to do everything in our power to not lose something, right? When we're in pain. So that's why, most people will not most people will not go out of their way to buy a backup hard drive, right? Like, maybe they might not spend like $300 buying a backup hard drive, but if you lose your most important document because your computer crashed, you'll pay $2,000 to retrieve that document. Do you understand what I mean? So we always regret after it's too late. So because I knew this, I knew that in order to create that sense of urgency to buy, we need some sort of a pain. So every client that came in, we're like trying to solve a pain, right? What's the problem you're solving? That's a question that I ask every single one of my clients. What's the problem your product solves? And then, our clients come in and, it's like, it's our app does this. Our app does that. Like, what problem does it solve? And once you what problem does it really solve? Okay, this bottle, what problem does it really solve, right? Okay, it keeps your water cool, but why does that matter? What I kept digging in, like, what is the real emotional problem? Because there's a difference between a physical problem and an emotional problem, right? Like, how many of you guys have like a physical problem, meaning like your room is messy, but you don't do anything about it because emotional, it doesn't, like, your room is messy, that's a problem. You should fix it, right? But you should clean it, but you don't clean it. But then as soon as you hear, somebody I like, somebody I have a crush on is coming over, then you're going to clean your room, right? Because the physical problem doesn't bother you. The fact that your room is dirty, you don't care. But as soon as you hear that somebody you like is going to see your dirty room, that's an emotional pain now, right? So another good example, and how I realized this is, I was working with a client that sells these braces that helps your back so you don't have back pain. But, a lot of people with chronic disease, a lot of people with chronic pain, like back pain or something like that, they don't go out of their way to fix it. Most people will live with the pain. They don't mind physical pain. But what they mind the emotional pain. Like, if I say, hey, relieve your back pain, they're like, I can live with it. They're not going to spend money to fix it. But if I say something like, oh, because of your back pain, when all your friends are going camping and all your friends are over there playing basketball, you're sitting there by yourself and you just have to watch them, right? You can't, or like you want to play with your grandkids, but you can't play with your grandkids because of your bad back, right? Those are emotional pains, and that's what really, really moves people, the emotional pain. So that's another thing I understood, right? So with every client, I dug in deeper. What's the emotional pain? What's the emotional pain? And at the end of the day, what I realized is that almost every product, our real problems. None of our problems are real problems, if you think about it. Like if you have food, water, and a shelter, all your problems are already solved. Okay, everything after that is just luxury. If you can eat, you can drink water, and you have a place to sleep, everything after that is luxury, right? You can live in a shitty basement apartment, or you can live in a mansion. But at the end of the day, what problem does a mansion solve? What problem does a Levi's jeans solve? What problem does a Supreme t-shirt solve? If you look at almost every, like, why buy an expensive iPhone rather than the cheapest smartphone out there, right? Every product that we buy, it comes down to status, it comes down to identity. And it's not always status, like the more expensive, the better, right? Because if you wear a expensive, like, 3-piece suit to a skate park, the skaters don't care about that, right? In the skate park, they care more about, I guess, Supreme or something like that, right? Something that's in there, right? But then if you wear a Supreme t-shirt to like Goldman Sachs and, to Wall Street, those Wall Street bankers don't care about that. So it's like identity. Like, okay, by me buying this, I'm telling the people that I'm this type of person, right? So I realized that almost every product that we sell, the problem that it really solves is identity and status. So that's how I came up with that. And so I wanted to come up with the most obvious example of that, right? Like, because like marketers always say that. What problems it solve? What problem does, like, marketers always say, oh, your product needs to solve a problem. Your product needs to solve a problem. And I hear all the marketers always say that, but I'm like, you guys don't know shit about what that really means, right? Because I did that with every single client, and ultimately what I realized is that every problem, every product, what it really solves is, like identity and status. So once I realized that, I'm just like, even if, for example, even if, like, let's say, it's a gym, right? It's a gym, or it's a life coaching program, or it's like a Instagram course that's going to help you grow Instagram, right? Why do you want to grow Instagram? Because you want more followers. That's identity. Why do you want more followers? So maybe you can make more money and you can buy a nicer house. That's identity. Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to look good? It's because it's you want to present yourself as a certain, oh, look how fit I am. Look how, like, so everything that we sell, ultimately, if you dig down emotionally, it comes down to identity and status. And that's what I realized. But I don't think most marketers realize that. And that's why I use the Ferrari as an example, because it's the most extreme case. Okay. I gotta stop rambling. It's like these answers are taking way too long. Next question. It's Brenda Rigney. Okay. How do we debunk a myth but be conscious of people's background or experiences like racism or discrimination? I'm worried might sound arrogant or from a place of privilege. I don't know how debunking a myth has to do with racism. Maybe you can put in the chat, like, what's like maybe give me an example, because I'm not sure how those two things are related. But I'll say this. I can't worry about triggering everybody out there, And here's another thing, right? I mean, this might be a little bit controversial, but when I work with clients, when I work with like when we do copywriting for people, all the clients always comes to me and they want one thing. They're like, son, I want more followers. Son, I want to make more money. I want higher conversions, right? So for me to deliver that, I have to be controversial. Okay? Like, and there's two reasons why. Number one, especially when you're on, it's for two different reasons. When you're on social media, nobody's on social media like reading it like a research book, right? Like trying to understand every little detail. Like social media is not like a research paper. It's not a blog. It's not a textbook. Nobody's on social media trying to get all the details right, right? They're just kind of not paying attention. And they're just, so what happens is on social media, you have to generalize. You have to simplify, and you have to make examples extreme. That's why I make my examples extreme. For example, I can say, "Oh, you shouldn't always try to follow passion. Sometimes you need money." Oh, okay. If someone in a job they don't like, but due to financial reasons they can't leave, and maybe have money related to, and maybe they have a money belief related to childhood. Yeah. Okay. So that's what happens, right? So if I say, "Oh, you like always do," I can say a nuance. Like I can say, um, sometimes you have to do what you love, but in other times you have to make. And I can talk about. I can give contextual information. I can say everything, because think about it. Everything in life is contextual. There's no general anything. There's always exception to everything. Nothing in life is black and white. So if you try to add all the little nuances and talk about every little detail, then it becomes a research paper, right? And then it doesn't work on social media. And if you don't make it extreme, people don't like. A lot of times when I make my, like, I'll talk about a post. Like the other day, I talk about a post where I talked about why you have to give the reason behind why for people to listen to you. And I gave an example of how there's that Navy SEAL guy who tells you why you should make your bed, right? And then when I posted, people didn't get it. They were just like, oh yeah, that's why they should, like, they didn't really actually get the lesson because I didn't dumb it down enough. I didn't make it the examples extreme enough. I didn't exaggerate. You have to, how when singers and actors, if you just talk normal and sing normal, it's gonna sound like they're mumbling, like kind of like this, right? You have to enunciate every single word when you act, so that and on camera it looks normal. So you actually have to go overboard just for people to get it. And on social media, it's the same thing. You have to go overboard. You have to exaggerate everything. Otherwise, people are just mainstream audience is just not gonna get it. And that's why I make my examples extreme. And what happens then is 80% of the people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, son, I never thought of it that way." Like I use the extreme example of the Ferrari versus Pinto, right? Instead of using something like, "Oh, why do people buy a Tesla versus, like Tesla versus Mini Cooper or something like that, right? Or Tesla versus a Hummer or something like that, right?" I can do that, but if I do that, it's not going to be as obvious. And some people are like, a lot of people are not going to get it when they're not paying attention. So I have to go extreme, even if it's a little bit unrealistic. So when I do that, I get so many haters attacking me in the comments, be like, "That's not always, actually, that's not always true." Or to be honest, that's, you're not correct about that. Oh, do you have any evidence to prove that? Like all the little smart asses, all the little teachers' pets are gonna come and attack me, right? But that's only 20% of the audience. But I have to sacrifice that 20% in order to wow the 80%. So my question to you is this: there's two ways you can do this. You can try to go after 100% and please everyone 100%, but you're only gonna get 100 people to pay attention because most people don't care about the nuances, right? Or would you rather go after 10,000 people, but then 20% of those people disagree with you, but 80% of the people that, that, and when I talk about this, a lot of people like don't even know that they were doing that. Like the reason why you want to make it balanced and nuanced and all of that is because I don't want to piss off those people. I don't want some expert to be like, "Hey, son, you're actually wrong about that." But the truth is this. I mean, because I've been doing this for a while. Truth is this: the real experts, the the real experts that are also in this game, they actually never attack me because they also understand the game. They also know that it has to be like I have to generalize. They know that there's no room for nuance, so they don't attack me. All the ones who attack me about those posts are always the nobodies. The ones they think they're an expert, they're really not. Like those are the only ones that attack me because they don't understand the reason why I'm doing it is not because I'm stupid, but the reason why I'm doing it is because that's the only way I can get my message across. So something like that. So what I do now is I use social media content to be polarizing. I make it very black and white and I make it very simple, generalized. And yes, some people hate me, but I explain myself. I explain the nuances through the IG live like this, or in my podcast, or in my long form content. That's why the more content you put out, the more chance you have to explain yourself, right? So you don't have to feel like people misunderstand you. So I guess to shorter version of that answer is if you feel like you're afraid to, kind of say something like misspoke, like say something that people will misunderstand, then just put out more content. Put out long form content where you explain those nuances so people don't misinterpret you. Do you know what I mean? That's the answer. To fight that, you fight being misunderstood by putting out more content where you explain that. Simple. Okay, the building community. So this is how I came up with that, right? So this is why I don't know if you guys are starting to see the pattern here, but all this content idea all comes from connecting the dots. Okay, so for example, when I first started Night Owl Nation, I've been telling everybody from day one, hey guys, I'm terrible at building community. I'm terrible at building relationships. That's just how I am. Like when I meet a lot of people and I make friends, but unless they call me, they text me, like we never hang out. If you if you if you leave it to me to reach out to them, we'll never hang out. We'll never talk because I'm just really bad at maintaining relationship. I'm really bad at building communities and getting together. I'm not even really like a community person, right? So in the beginning, when I started Night Owl Nation, I told everyone that I'm like, I'm not a community builder, okay, guys. Okay, I'm not good at building community. I'm not blah, blah. But everybody at Night Owl Nation is like, son, you're right, you're wrong. Like this is like everyone's joining Night Owl Nation because of the community. We love the community here, community. And I'm like, okay, all I want to do is teach storytelling. All I want to do is get you guys to practice storytelling. Okay, I don't give a like. Community is not the reason why I'm doing this. But what happened was, whenever I ask everyone at Night Owl Nation, what do you love about Night Owl Nation? Everybody says community. So I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how did that happen? And I keep telling my leaders, like I'm not a community builder. Don't expect me. I'm not, I'm not that guy. Okay, I'm not that wow. Like I'm not. I'm a super introvert. Okay, but then somehow Night Owl Nation community got built, and people love this community, right? And then the other day, I was watching that movie documentary. There was a movie about Beanie Babies, right? And what happened was, the founder of Beanie Baby, the CEO of Thai Corporation, his name is Thai, actually. Thai wanted to sue the Beanie Baby community. He's like, these people are making money off of my product, and he wanted to sue them. Like he didn't want to cultivate a community. He didn't want that community to exist, right? But the community built itself. They started selling Beanie Babies to each other because because back then Thai would make only 1,000 pieces of an item, right? So something will only be made like 1,000 times before they change the color or something like that. So that 1,000, the original became like a kind of a collector's item, right? Limited edition, right? So people started selling it, and then because they started selling, the prices going up. So and then some people who are really into those Beanie Babies started a community where they calculate the market price of a Beanie Baby, and these communities got built on its own. That's what happened. That if you watch the movie, you'll see what happened. And I'm like, holy shit! A light bulb went in my head. I'm like, of course, I connected the dots to my own experience, what I experienced. I wasn't trying to build a community either. I was just trying to teach storytelling. That's all. I was trying to get people to, practice storytelling with each other. That's it. I wasn't trying to build a community, but the community got built by itself. Similar to how the Beanie Baby when I was watching the Beanie Baby community got built. So when I was watching that movie, I'm like, oh my gosh, that feels so similar to what happened to me, where I wasn't trying to build a community and it just got built by itself. So that's how I connected the dots between those two. And that's how I came up with that content idea or that story, right? So you guys seeing a pattern here? Every piece of content that I put, what's happening is I experience something in my life, and then I watch a movie or I see somebody or I see another example of that, or I connect it to some sort of a lesson somebody's saying, and then I connect the two dots, and that's my content. And when you do that, it makes people say, I never thought of it that way. So that's how I came. So I hope you guys are seeing the pattern here. The pattern here is that all my content, every single one piece of my content, it's not like I sat here and with a pen and a paper, I just forced myself to come up with an idea. And that's not how I came up with it. Every single one of my content is a result of me living something, me experiencing something, and connecting the dot between that experience and this other thing that I saw in a movie or this other lesson that people were teaching. And I'm like, no, that's not necessarily true because I experienced this, right? So all my content is based on me just connecting the dots. And if you look at Night Owl Nation, that's all we do at Night Owl Nation. All we are doing at Night Owl Nation every fucking week is we're practicing connecting the dots, and in our mind. And what you do is in your mind, if you keep connecting that, oh, that experience feels kind of like this. Oh, that reminds me of this story. Oh, that reminds me of this. When you're doing that every single day, what you're training in your brain is you're training pattern recognition skills. Like, so your brain is like, oh, you're recognizing patterns everywhere. And once you get good at that, everywhere you go, you don't even have to try anymore. Like, you see patterns everywhere. And once you start to see those patterns, you can just connect, boom, connect content. That's how I come up with pretty much every single content ideas. Okay. Why the right time will never come. The same thing happened, right? Like, so, for me, I was like, I'm gonna. Okay, here's a good example. When I was 19 years old, or no, maybe I was older, 20. What happened? Oh no, actually, this happened later on. This was like actually when I was like 22 or 23. I got laid off from my first job, and when I got laid off, it forced me to start a business, right? And then once I started a business, I learned how to sell. I learned how to do all of these things. I learned how to. Almost every job that I've ever had, like even that first job, I didn't know how to design. When I got there, when I got the job, I forced myself to learn it, right? Almost every job I ever had, I didn't know how to do it until I got the job, and I forced myself to do it, right? Like, and I'll give you another example, right? Like, did you know how to have sex when the first time you had sex? Nobody taught you how to have sex, but you knew how to do it, right? Like, every experience that, like, what happened was, because I learned everything when I was forced to learn it. Every experience, I didn't know how to have a relationship until I got my first girlfriend. Every experience that I've ever had in life were like that. Once I was forced into that situation, I learned it, right? And it was like all different levels, right? Once I was forced to sell, I learned how to sell. Once I was forced to learn SEO, I learned SEO, right? Now, I was talking to a friend of mine who just got pregnant, right? Or not, he didn't get pregnant, but his wife got pregnant, and they were not ready to have a baby at all, right? So, and this guy, if I look at it, I'm like, you will never be a parent. Like when I look at him, he's like, you're a fucking child yourself. How can you be a fucking dad, right? And I was like, yeah, like there's no way you're ready to be a parent, right? And he agreed with me. He's like, yeah. But then they had a baby, and as soon as they had the baby, this guy matured and he became more responsible and he became a dad and he learned how to be a fucking parent. And then years later, we were having a conversation. I'm like, and that's when he told me, he's like, you know what? What he realized is that actually nobody's ready to be a parent. Nobody is ready to. When people have kids, everyone's scared. When you know when they get pregnant, everybody's scared. Everybody knows how they're gonna raise this kid, but they figure it out, right? And when I heard that, that's when I connected the dots. Like, oh my gosh, that's kind of how it is with business. Nobody starts a business knowing how to run a business. But once you force yourself to start a business, you figure it out. Once you force yourself to start posting content every day, you'll figure it out. Just like you'll figure out how to be a parent. So that's when I connected those two dots. So almost every little aha moments that I have is just me experiencing something and connecting the dot between that experience and another experience, and just keep connecting those dots. I hope you guys are starting to see a pattern here. Same goes for those who think they are ready. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Actually, the ones they think they are ready, the ones that have the perfect business plan, oh, this is the perfect product. They plan their whole life, and I'm gonna like that. That actually, I've had that experience too, Katerina. When I first started a YouTube channel, I spent $10,000 buying cameras, lights. I hire a videographer to follow me around. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be the next Gary Vee. I'm gonna be the Asian Gary Vee. And I had him I did this. I'm gonna do daily vlogs and blah blah blah. And we started putting out those videos. Like those videos literally got like fucking 12 views. Like, and we did it for like 3 months, and nothing was happening. So I thought I knew what I was doing. We had the perfect intro, perfect theme song, perfect everything. But it turns out I didn't know shit, right? So that even made me more convicted. But when I went on Instagram, I just uploaded my Zoom recordings, and those started doing well. So I'm just that's kind of how life is. You're never gonna figure it out. You figure it out once you're forced to figure it out. I guess that's the lesson, right? Okay. You see what happened just now? As soon as Katerina said it goes the other way around, immediately I connected the dot between that, what she said, and when I started my YouTube channel, right? I connected that dot. You see how I did that? I did that live. I didn't sit there and I'm like, okay, let me turn on my creative brain and try to. I didn't do that. It's just when you're practicing connecting the dots and pattern recognition, it just happens automatically. Social by Qasim, can you put the question in the sticker? Yeah, guys, put this question in the sticker chat, because if it moves up, I can't keep track of it. Okay, what do you do? Fear of getting client results? Oh, okay. that was your question. Okay. If you are afraid of getting client results, if you're a beginner, or I might fail. So that's exactly what I was thinking of, what I was talking about in my post today. So that is kind of an imposter syndrome, right? The reason why you have that imposter syndrome is because you think you're not good enough. Instead of being grateful about the opportunity, you're being insecure. Oh, what if I lose this? Oh, what if I lose this client? What if this client hates me? What if I fail? Okay, if you fail, then you're right back to zero when you didn't have that client. Okay? Go back to the moment when you didn't have that client. Would you rather not have the client at all? Would you rather have a client and then fail? Or would you rather not have the client at all? Answer that question first. Because the worst that can ever happen is that you're going to lose that client. That's the worst that can happen, right? So that's one way to answer that question, right? Because I had that same imposter syndrome, right? Like, for example, I'll get this, like Jay Shetty will reach out to me and like they're like, oh, we want you to do our website. We're like, oh my gosh, what if he doesn't like it? Oh, what if I do this website and he doesn't like it? Oh my gosh, you get scared. Okay, if he doesn't like it, then I'm right back to zero when I didn't have that opportunity to begin with. That's the worst that can happen. Okay, so just be grateful that you even have the opportunity. Number two, in the old agency I used to work at, I had to sell websites that I knew was garbage. Like I knew that it's not gonna deliver results, and I still had to sell it. And I felt like shit. I felt like I was a liar. I felt like a fraud. But when I started selling it for myself, I didn't have that insecurity. I had all the confidence in the world because what I would tell the client is I didn't promise results to the client. I didn't tell the client like, oh, if you hire me, I'm gonna make sure you double your conversion. If you hire me, I'm gonna make sure you're gonna get this result. I never said that. What I say is, I'm gonna try my best to get you the most conversion as possible. And if I can't, I'll keep trying until I get it. Like I'm gonna try to best to deliver everything that I can. But I can't promise you anything, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to understand, right? As marketers, if you're doing marketing service, I can do the best fucking marketing job in the world. I can do all the conversions in the world. I can do the best fucking job. But what if their product is just garbage? What if they're selling something that doesn't work? What if their fulfillment fucking sucks? What if they take so long delivering their products? What if their customer service sucks? It's not, at the end of the day, it's not your business. You're providing a specific service in exchange for a specific price. That's all you're doing. To make money for you, it's not your job to make money for them. You have to remember that. It's their job. That's why they get into a business. If it's your job to make money, then everybody will just hire marketers and be like, hey, make money for me. Why even run a business? What's the purpose of a business owner if it's the marketer's responsibility to make money for me, right? It's the business owner already. The risk is on the business owner hiring you, and they're doing all of that, right? It's not your job to deliver results. The only result you can deliver is what you promise them you will, right? So for me, I promise you that I'm going to deliver the best design that I can do, right? And I'm going to deliver, like I'm going to work on that website, and I'm going to make sure that you're happy. That's all I can do. But I can't predict the future. I can't make your shitty product better. So you have to understand that you have to draw a clear boundary on what service you're providing and in exchange for how much. And anything that's outside of that is not your responsibility. Okay, let's do a couple more. Your post about how to hook the audience. How to hook the audience. Oh, okay. That was. Yeah, so I think that was the same thing. Because what happened was I read this book. I read this book. It's called okay, there's few things here. There's few different areas I got this. Number one, I watched this storytelling video where this guy was talking about how he was giving an example from a story that the Cherry Water founder tells. And how the Cherry Water founder tells the story is he raises a question. Oh, I was in this restaurant and somebody was talking about this girl in Africa where, this this girl was bringing back water, and she dropped the water on the way back, and she ended up just hanging herself on the tree. And then, like, I was like, what? So as soon as you heard that story, and now the story ends, right? But as soon as the story ends, immediately what the next thing he says is like, so I had to go to Africa to see this for myself, right? So as soon as he said that, he's raising another question. Now I'm like, oh, so what happened? What happened when you went to Africa? And then boom, and then this happened, and then when I came back, oh, I started doing this, and that, like, so what happened was, when he was telling the story, he'll never answer a part of the story without raising another question, so that it keeps you hooked. There's a constant element of mystery, right? So that's one thing I learned from watching that video. Another thing I learned is it's from this book, where this book is called Consider This by Chuck Palahniuk. And in this book, he talks about how sometimes you have to give away the ending. And he gives an example of Titanic. And so everyone who's going to watch the Titanic knows what's going to happen at the end. It's going to sink. The boat's going to sink. That's what's going to happen at the end. Everyone knows that. But we still go to watch it. Why? Because we want to know what happens in between. And what happens is it actually makes us more interested, because now it feels like we know more than the character. Like Jack or whoever in the movie Titanic, they don't know the boat's going to sink, but we know, right? So we know something they don't know, right? And we're like, oh, no, don't do that. Oh, don't go there. Oh, my God. And when they hit the iceberg, oh, this is when it's going to happen. So actually, us knowing what's going to happen is actually makes it more interesting for the story, right? So I knew it, and what it does is that it makes the audience feel smarter than the character. One of the things that you want to do when you write a story is you want the audience to feel smarter than you. Okay? So and it's the reason why I make all my content, and like in a way that it's like it makes you say, I never thought of it that way, right? The reason why you never thought of it that way is because you already kind of knew it. You just didn't see it that way, but you already knew it. And so I want you to understand that you already knew this, right? And by me putting it that way, I'm making you feel smarter, because you're getting what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying. And maybe at that time you're sitting there and be like, oh, other people don't understand this, but I understand this. And that makes you feel smart. I want you to feel smart, right? So there's like a series of those things that I've learned in the past that gets people hooked, and that those kind of things also hook me, right? So I wanted to represent it into a slide, and I guess that one I did do some thinking. That one is a little bit different, because I did sit down and think about, okay, what can I do to give that element of mystery, right? And one thing I knew is that in design, I know that wherever the subject is looking at, if I'm looking here, then your attention automatically goes there. You want to know what I'm looking at, right? So I purposely picked the picture where these people are looking at over here, but you have to swipe to the next slide to see what that is, right? So that makes you want to swipe. And then I used giving away the ending, because I said, oh, time flies when, and then on the next slide say you're having fun, right? So when I say time flies when, everybody knows that what comes next is when you're having fun, right? So it's like I'm almost giving them a little quiz. Hey, can you guess this answer? And they swipe, and it's like, oh, I got it right. And then they get this little dopamine in it, like, oh, yeah, I got it right. And then the next one is the cutting off thing, like the cliffhanger is, I know that if I cut off a line in the middle, then it's gonna be a cliffhanger, and then and then I just go to the last slide. So that one I actually had to use a lot of like design elements and copywriting in order to get that done. So that's actually one of the posts that I'm most proud of. I actually put a lot of thought into that post, and I think that's the kind of post that I think most people can't come up with. I think, like, even me looking at it right now, I'm like, oh, that's fucking brilliant. Okay, Bori, what What do you do as a product designer who doesn't have any metrics to measure the success rate of products you've designed? What alternatives would you suggest to show I know my stuff besides these metrics? Because most clients and organizations always want to see that. That's not necessarily true, Worry. Because I mean, I guess it depends on the product. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by success rate of a product. But does that mean more sales? Does that mean more people use it or something like that? I don't know. But if you're a designer, what you need more than anything else is testimonials. Like what you need is, I don't think anybody came to me that hired me for design and branding and said, "Hey, I want to see a number. I want to see your results." I don't. I want to see your no client has ever told me that. What they say is, I think you might be thinking that yourself, that's what they want, but the truth is not, because you're not selling marketing service. You're not selling ROI. You're not selling metrics. What you're selling is a visual design and usability, right? And there's really no way to measure that, right? So if I were you, what I would do is I would create a clear case study of before and after, like how you designed it and what thought process went into it, so they know what you're doing. And then the client testimonial, so that they know that, guys, listen to this. Like, a lot of service providers don't understand this. A lot of service provider thinks that what matters is their price or how good their portfolio is. I mean, don't get me wrong, portfolio is important. Those things are important. But to the clients, the number one most important thing is trust. Trust is the number one most important thing. And that's the reason why you need to, if you don't have testimonials, if you're not getting referrals, if you're not focused on delivering 100% result for the client so they can refer you, you're not doing a good job as a service provider. Because for me, whenever I hire a freelancer, whenever I hire somebody, you know what my biggest worry is? What if this person missed the deadline? What if they just disappear? What if they leave me hanging? How can I trust this person? That's my biggest fear. Do you understand what I mean? Because if they deliver a design that's like, I'm like, oh, it's not quite there, I can still work with them to finish it. I can still work with them as long as they keep an open communication. But so many fucking freelancers out there, they just ghost their clients. They just ghost their clients. They just disappear. They don't respond for 2 days. And that's actually what most clients are scared about. So if you can prove to them that you're not going to do that, then that's the most important thing that they need to know. I hope that was helpful. Okay, Fisherville. In selling common products, how can someone be extreme enough to have them stop and listen to us? I don't know. That's a very loaded question. It depends. What's your product? What's your product? What is the selling point? What's the pain point? What is the solution that it's providing? Like, I need to understand all of that. But whatever that is, you have to make the pain extreme, right? Something that they're actually, okay, I need to stop and buy this right now, right? And then, how do you provide the solution? And how is that solution better than somebody else? That, like, all of that needs to be extreme and clear. So I don't, sorry, I can't really answer. That's like a too complex of a question to just read it from a chat. Okay, this is the last one. Okay, Tam, you said when you invested in 10K to produce videos, you didn't get much traction. Do you think it's best to document what you're doing or plan your content when you are making videos? I don't know. Like, I guess it depends, right? Because I'm not a video creator. Like, a lot of YouTubers say you should plan, and you should plan your thumbnail, you should plan everything. But I really think that answer depends on the creator. Because if you look at Gary Vee does it very differently than Mr. Beast or even Alex Hormozi. Like, if you look at Alex Hormozi's video, it's well scripted. There's clear editing going on there, and it's all planned out. He's talking to the camera. Whereas in Gary Vee, he's just talking, right? If you look at these podcasters, they're just having the conversation and you're taking the clip. So I think it really all depends on the creator, right? So for me, the reason why I don't do the talking, like, yeah, I can plan out my script, I can talk to the camera, I can say today I can do this, right? I can go, I can hit record button and say, okay, guys, today I'm going to teach you how you can write your copy so that you can get the most results on your Instagram. And then I can plan it out and I can stay like that. But I don't do that. And the reason why I don't do that is because I don't have the time to do that. If I'm a full-time YouTuber and that's how I make money, yeah, I'll do that. But I have shit to do. I'm running two businesses. I'm busy, right? I have a personal life. So what I have to do is I have to do this. I just have to show up in live and just answer questions. I have to just have a conversation in my podcast, and I have to let my video editors take the clips and upload it. So I spend literally zero time on making video content. So if you're doing it like me, maybe like that, and that's probably not going to get as much traction. But my goal is not to hack the algorithm and get most views and reach people. I'm not trying to hack the algorithm to force people to watch my videos. And that's why I don't edit. Like, if you look at my podcast, I don't edit anything. Some of them are 2 hours, 3 hours long. I don't give a shit, because at the end of the day, you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. If it's too long for you, don't watch it. If my answers are too long for you, don't watch it. But hopefully some people will find it helpful. And if they find it helpful, hopefully they'll share it with their friends who's going to find it helpful. And hopefully if they find it helpful, they'll share it with their friends. And over the long run, maybe it'll work. Like, otherwise, like, I'm not, like, there's 37 people watching here, right? Like, look, my 1 hour is way worse. Like, there's no way the ROI works there. Like, there's no, if I were to spend this hour right now, like, coaching a client or working with working on a website, was like, that's probably equivalent to $1,000. There's no way I'm going to get the $1,000 ROI, but by being on this live. But the reason why I do it is because I want this piece of content. So obviously I'm answering the questions for you. That's number one, but I'm also getting the content, and I'm using this as a content too. So that's how I do it. Tell us how you came up with the idea for your last Insta post. Okay. I think if you're talking about my carousel, go to my YouTube channel, and there's a video called how to create mind-blowing content. I just uploaded it yesterday. Go watch it. And in that, it's a 4-minute video that explains exactly how I came up with that carousel. So do that. Sorry, I'm running out of time, so I gotta go. But thank you, everyone. Thank you. I'll see you all next week. Thank you for all your questions. And until then, cheers. Bye.